Okay, students are cool. So we begin today's class first of all by quickly reviewing the past concepts. And the last time we were able to look at the debtors account and the creditors account. The main objective is to be able to determine the credit sales and the credit purchases. And I want to believe my professors are very okay with that. Today, we want to look at the expense and income account, which would assist us determine the exact or total expenses incurred for the particular period and the total income earned for that particular period. So we'll have to quickly look at the format, but like I always do, I'll make it very brief and simple. So we know expenses to over from rent and rates, salaries, etc. You know all the expenses, right? Now, why do we have to prepare the expense account? We have to do that because under the single entry system, it becomes difficult to trace the exact expense that has been incurred for a particular period. This could be due to lack of information or scanty information that is not properly organized. Okay, so you can have a business owing rent from last year. The business made some payment during the year. It still has some outstanding for the next year. So the information, I should say, become very plenty. So as an accountant, you need to organize them and determine how much expense you have incurred. Now, before I go into it, let me psych your brains a little, or let me tease your brains a little. Let's say you pay for your which one would fit better, given that you are students. Let's say you pay for SRC dues. I don't know if you do that, but let's assume that you pay SRC dues or any kind of dues. Maybe you are part of an association or a club. Okay, imagine you are supposed to pay 100 cedis dues every semester. Now, Prof. Ella, last semester you paid 50 cedis. This semester you have paid 200 cedis. In fact, if I ask you, what is your dues for the semester? What would be your answer? Let me take it again. You are supposed to pay dues of 100 cedis, right? Last semester, as in per semester. Last semester, you paid 50 cedis, right? This semester, you have paid 200 cedis. If I'm to ask you, how much dues did you have to spend on this semester? What would be your answer?
250.
250. Okay. Prof. Fia, I guess I should ask you same question. You are supposed to pay the dues 100 cedis per semester, right? Last semester you paid 50. This semester you have paid 200. Now the question is, what is your total expense, specifically dues, for this semester? Or if I should go and come. Let me pick Prof. Jacinda and Prof. Chan. If I'll come back to you. Prof. Jacinda, how much have you spent on dues for this semester in terms of expense?
Please, you said the 200 was paid this semester.
Yeah.
Like the question.
Okay, so let me put it on the screen so that you can follow. So this is the issue. You are required to pay the dues. Okay, so the dues is 100 Ghana cedi. Every semester, 100 Ghana cedis. Okay. Last semester, you paid 50 cedis. And this semester, you paid 200. So the issue with my question is, how much expense have you incurred for this semester in terms of dues? Prof. Ella, if you want to change your answer, you can do so.
Mr. Amma,
Uh-huh.
please. I'm not sure at all, but I'm going to try.
Don't worry, even your teacher, I'm not sure, so try.
Please, I think 150.
You think 150 cedis? Okay, great. Thank you very much, Prof. Jacinda. Prof. Ella.
When you're explaining the public sector accounting, you made mention of cash basis and accrued basis, like like incurred basis.
Yeah.
So it depends. Some companies might choose to choose the cash, and some companies might choose to use the incurred basis, like the other type.
Okay. So
Yes, so it depends on you.
Okay, so yes, specifically relate to what you want to speak to in this master. So if it's based on the accrual,
if it's based on accrual, then it's you spend how much can you spend 200 with a balance of 50 cedis as like to the next month, to the next semester. But if it is cash basis, then you spend 250.
Okay, that's I'm happy you brought the insight of accrual basis of accounting and cash basis. Okay. Prof. HR, let me hear you this morning.
Please, I also think it's one.
You earned what?
I also think it's 150.
You go with 150. Okay, okay. In fact, I think that I need to summon all my professors to the Supreme Court this morning for a determination of how long they should stay in custody of Omega classes. So Mr. Amwa can. Okay, well, I'm really appreciative of your input and the insight you bring in there. But let's look at something here. Prof. Ella, I'll pick on yours first. So yes, I indicated that there are several bases of accounting, right? It could be cash, it could be accrual. In fact, we have the other forms of basis like commitment accounting. Okay, we have fund accounting, a lot of them. But when we're looking at businesses who are making profit, okay, or who are doing business, be it rendering of services or providing goods or merchandise, okay, then majority of them go with the accrual basis of accounting. Okay, it's the public sector that seeks to, bother much about the cash basis. Most businesses do not appreciate the cash basis because it's a bit weird. Imagine I have sold goods, but because I haven't received money, I don't record it as sales that has been earned. Okay. But if you go back to the concept of accounting, you remember realization concept, which says that immediately you transfer ownership of the goods to the buyer, you should realize or recognize revenue. Okay, but the cash basis would disagree with that standard and say it's only when you have received cash you can recognize your sales. Okay, so let me say all the discussions we'll be doing will be centered on the accrual, from the sole proprietorship to partnership companies. they apply the or would be applying the accrual basis. But like you said, if there are clear directives that this business is solely going on the cash basis, then you apply respectively. However, you sought to give me the basis, but in both cases, you missed the exact expense that was incurred or spent or cash was spent on. Okay. Now, for those who went with the 150, I won't fault you because you are supposed to pay 100 cedis a semester. Last semester, you paid 50, so it means you are owing 50 from the last semester. And this semester, you are supposed to pay 100, so you sought to add the two to get the 150. I think we should find a basis of accounting for that. Okay, now, under the accrual, so I'm going to use the accrual and cash basis to help us appreciate this. Under the accrual system, right? If you are asked, how much expense have you incurred for this semester? Beautiful ladies, the answer is 100 Ghana cedis. Okay. This is the expense on dues you have incurred as a member of that club for this semester or for this particular period. Okay. Now, if it was based on the cash basis, then you'd only look at how much cash you have paid or expended on that expenditure. In this case too, it's going to be 100 Ghana cedis because the dues you are supposed to pay is 100 and you've actually spent cash of 100 cedis on that. The balance 100 will be for the next period. Okay. So that is to tell you that when you are looking at the expense incurred for the month, you only pay attention to the exact expense you are supposed to spend on for that particular period. Let me cite another example to make it more meaningful. If your rent for a year is 2,500, it doesn't matter whether you have paid 5,000. Your rent expense for that year is 2,500. If you have paid just 1,500 of it, still the expense for that period on rent is 2,500. I don't know if it makes sense.
A little.
A little. So let me cite another scenario. From Cape Coast to Accra, your transport expense, let's assume, is 200 cedis, right? If you give the driver 250 cedis and I ask you, oh Ella, how much do you spend on transport from Cape Coast to Accra? Are you going to tell me 250 or 200? 200. Because yes, the 200 constitute the expenditure for traveling from Cape Coast to, even though you have paid in extra, the extra is not an expense. Probably you sought to be benevolent towards the driver, right? The same way, if you paid 180 cedis to the driver and you are asked what is the total expense for traveling from Cape Coast to Accra, you can't tell us it's 180. That would be deception. It is 200, just that probably you got some discount, or maybe the driver was in a hurry, so he said, oh, let me take the 180 and go. Okay. So that's what I mean when I say the expense incurred for the period. Prof, just in the question. I'm listening.
Yes, please. Mr. Amwa, so does it mean that you don't use the amount like you paid, but you rather use the amount of like the item or the service that you are asking for?
Exactly. Exactly. That's the point.
Oh.
So if you are looking for your expense, you look at so if it's rent and the rent is 1,000 cedis for the period, for the year, your rent expense is 1,000. But you see, it so happens that, so let me go back to our scenario, okay, so that we know how you can get the exact expenditure from preparing a simple expense account. Okay. Now here it became simple because we know we have to pay a dues 100 cedis for the semester, right? But under normal circumstance, you'd have to prepare the dues account and record how much you paid last semester, how much you were owing, and how much you've paid this semester. Then when you balance it, you can know the true expense on dues, right? So having convinced you a little, I think I should go on to the format so we can make progress. Okay. Now, when we're in GHS, I think we're spending on fees. We had fees as an expense. You remember sometimes you can pay in advance. You are in Form 1, but you can even pay for Form 2 fees. Or sometimes you might be in Form 2, but you'll be owing from Form 1, right? So there are owings and prepayments. Hence, for you to be able to know the exact fees, you'd have to prepare the fees account, especially on the side of the school, which is dealing with a lot of students, okay? Because Amma has paid in advance, Equia is owing, Mr. Amo is owing, Ella has paid in advance, Jacinda has paid in advance, Echan has paid till she finished school, Efia has paid in advance. Okay, so it becomes difficult determining how much fees you are supposed to collect as a school for the year. So you have to prepare a fees account, know those who are owing, those who have paid in advance, to be able to tell the exact fees you are collecting. So let's go into it. Though I have less than 10 minutes to do that. I believe I can do that. So it's pretty simple, okay? You need the following items. The first item is an opening balance. So if it is rent, do you have any opening balance on the rent? And interestingly, the opening balance could be a prepayment or an arrears. So it could be that it's a prepayment or an arrears. Let me give an example. We are in the year 2024. Imagine if I had a school and I need to pay for my teacher's salary. Okay. Now, last year, 2023, I paid some of them in advance and I was owing some of them too. So in the year 2024, I need to acknowledge that, oh, from 2023, I had arrears of salaries and I had also paid some people in advance. So that's the opening balance. You need the opening balance, be it prepayment or arrears. Okay? After you pick those figures, you look for how much cash or check you have paid for that particular expenses. How much cash or check paid for the expense during the year. Okay? And then finally, your closing balance, which can also be a prepayment or arrears. So these are the three basic things you need: opening balance, cash or check paid for the expense, and the closing balance. But you should always acknowledge that your opening balance and closing balance may be a prepayment or arrears. Okay. Prof. Sanam, you are welcome. Professors, any question before we continue? Any question? In fact, I would want us to look at a case, okay, so that we can make some sense out of whatever we are doing. So I don't know. I think our time is up, but I'll try as much as possible to use the remaining minute to give the case. So follow the case as I present. So let's assume that we are renting two buildings. We are renting two buildings. building A and building B. I don't know why I'm taking my time for you to understand. Ordinarily, I would have given you the format to move on, but I think I want my professors to understand. Now, let's assume we are in the year 2024. So the current year is 2024. Now let's look at some information here. As at 1st January 2024, this was some information that we had. Rent outstanding on building A was $500. And on that same date, rent prepaid for building B was 1,000. Okay. During the year, total rent paid is 15,000 Ghana cedis. 15,000 Ghana cedis. Then, as at, even though the year has not ended yet, as at 31st December 2024, we had rent prepaid for building A 200 and rent outstanding for building B 300. Dear professors, if you are given this information and they ask you what is the total rent paid on building for this business, you see that it's going to be chaotic because you have a lot of figures, right? Some are prepayments, some are owings, some we brought them from the previous year. During the year, we have paid some rent. If we ask you to find what is their total rent for the year 2024, it's going to be chaotic. Unless you know maybe from the tenancy agreement that is how much they are supposed to pay for the year 2024. But interestingly, we can use the expense account to find the exact rent for 2024. But we'll do that in the next session. However, we have some 3 minutes and I would want my professors to ramble their heads, if there is any word like that, ramble their heads around this and see what they can produce.